Okay, so within tertiary structure, there's a few different, I guess, kind of common manifolds that you'll see. And these are between globular proteins and fibrous proteins. So globular proteins have more of a spherical shape. So they fold in a spherical way due to interactions between R groups with solvents. So they have the hydrophobic in the middle, hydrophilic on the outside, making an overall round type shape. These proteins are responsible for doing work. So they're typically catalysts or transport proteins, or they are used to synthesize things in our bodies. For example, we have myoglobin. Is a globular protein that stores oxygen in our skeletal muscles. So a high concentration of this is in sea mammals in order to make sure that they have enough oxygen when they're swimming around with little oxygen in the water. And just a particular feature of these kinds of globular proteins is that I was trying to do a star, but 3/4 of globular proteins, so 3/4 of the 150 approximately amino acids that typically come up in globular proteins are alpha helices or alpha helical. That's why you see a lot of these ribbon spirals in this picture over here. Then we also have something called fibrous proteins. So fibrous proteins are more like fibers of, think about like fibers of clothing. So globular sounds like a big, like kind of gooey blob, right? Fibrous sounds like a fiber of thread or a fiber of fabric is what I think of, at least. So fibrous proteins have long, thin, fiber-like shapes, and they're more structural in manner. So above the globular proteins did work, fibrous proteins are more for structure and structural integrity. For example, alpha keratin is in our hair, it's in wool, in our skin, and our nails. They have a lot of cysteine to put multiple proteins together. So that the multiple proteins are held together. Structures are held together by those disulfide bonds. And so you have multiple proteins kind of lined up next to each other, making it stronger. This is very different from beta keratin. So beta keratin typically has a lot of beta pleated sheets. So that's in things more like feathers and scales. So fibrous proteins are going to look more like this, where there's primarily alpha helices, and then they could be coiled together into two chains. So maybe through those disulfide bonds, maybe through hydrogen bonding interactions, and they spiral together. Then you can have even more. You can have coils next to coils, and then the last one is called filament, which is where you have lots of these coils next to each other, making a bigger coil, and that's where you get that strength from. Okay, so those are the two, at least, kinds of tertiary structure that are common that you guys should be aware of.